How's it going, everybody, and welcome to episode 15 and a half of The Operating Room. I'm your host, Kev Mahserejian, aka at RotoSurgeon on Twitter, and today's episode is going to be all about fantasy basketball players to buy low. I have about 4 options for you to choose from today, but for the most part, these are guys that I just really believe have greater long-term value than what you're probably going to have to give up to acquire them. Now, a few of them may be considered busts early in the year, and that does suck to kind of have to invest in, given that maybe it becomes a trend, maybe there's something wrong, the shortened offseason was a bit of an issue for this player and we don't really see it because this pandemic's just so unforeseen and it's not really anything that we have any sort of bases to go off of. But before I get into any of that, make sure to go check out ownersbox.com. If you love the strategy of season-long fantasy sports and live for the short-term gratification of DFS, then you have to try out weekly fantasy sports on OwnersBox. Head on over to rotoballer.com/box and sign up today. Weekly fantasy sports is the best of daily and season long. It keeps you engaged through live drafting and new multi-week games. OwnersBox will also be paying out users who bring their friends on board. Watch the real money rewards pile up through their first ever 3-tiered referral system. Add friends, create groups, and rank up to elevate the competition and trash talk to the next level. But that's not it. OwnersBox will be matching your first time deposit of up to $500 for any new depositors through January 4th. Just head on over to rotoballer.com/box and sign up today to claim your rewards and join the new wave of weekly fantasy sports. So the first player I have for you today is someone that we're all fairly familiar with. It's Devin Booker. Now, Devin Booker is obviously a hot commodity. He's one of the bigger names in the NBA. He's basically the face of the Phoenix Suns franchise. But to start the season through 7 games, he is the 108th ranked player on Yahoo Fantasy Basketball formats. That's for 9-cat Roto as of right now. And as we're seeing, it's a single-digit scoring game to his name. His free throw shooting is a little dismal. His turnovers are a little egregious. He has about a steal and 0.3 blocks per game. His scoring is down from recent years. His assists are down. Rebounds are about the same. He's making fewer threes, and that's mostly because he's shooting less than last year and the year before that even. Devin Booker, as of right now, is taking 3 fewer shots than recent years, and it is affecting his stat line as a whole. His usage is relatively similar to those years. It's just below 30%. His turnover rate is above 20% for the first time. Now, we should see that turnover rate decrease as the season goes on. This team, the Phoenix Suns, as they are a good team right now, they're still kind of learning to play with each other. Chris Paul is going to take a lot of the load out of Devin Booker's hands, and that could continue throughout the season. But as we know, Chris Paul's not the healthiest individual on the planet. He has his own issues. He's getting up there in age, and Devin Booker may be called upon for more work down the line. So right now, maybe the ball is going around a lot more than we'd like. DeAndre Ayton's getting his, Michael Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, yada yada. This team is loaded. There's a lot of talent. But at the end of the day, Devin Booker is as proven as they come. It's just kind of a weird start to the season. It's really hard to tell what you would trade away. That would depend upon negotiations. But you can definitely get Devin Booker for maybe 3rd or 4th round value upon what you drafted. Maybe on the other end, it's just dying for blocks and needs Miles Turner and has near 4 blocks per game. Obviously, it's not going to be Miles Turner for Devin Booker straight up. But if you can kind of sway that sort of trade, that's exactly what I'd be looking for. Given that Devin Booker's scoring and 3 potential is through the roof, he kind of gives you a little bit of everything. His field goal percentage is nearly 50% right now. So Devin Booker is as efficient as they come. That free throw percentage will go up. He is not going to remain below a 70% shooter from the free throw. It's only been 7 games, so nobody should be really doubting that. Turnovers could remain an issue, but they will go down eventually as he learns how to coexist with Chris Paul. So Devin Booker, definitely someone I'm looking into, and I know the price is going to be high, but he will be worth it, and it will be worth negotiating with the Devin Booker manager in your league. Now, the second guy I'm really interested in is Robert Covington of the Portland Trailblazers. Now, Robert Covington has had a rough stretch to start the season. He's shooting below 35% from the field. He's getting his stocks, he's getting his rebounds. The threes are low because he's not making many shots. Rocco is an interesting case as of right now because he's shooting half as many shots as he had for the last half decade. Since 2014-2015, Rocco has taken roughly 10 shots per game for every single season up until this one right here. Now, this could be another case of learning to coexist with a new team. Robert Covington is new to the Trailblazers, and they run a pretty interesting roster with a pretty traditional center, whether that be Yusuf Nurkic or Enes Kanter. They don't really have a floor stretcher at the 5 spot, so Rocco is relied upon a ton to stretch the floor from the wing, and maybe he's still learning how to navigate CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. It is not easy to join a new team, especially with an extremely short offseason. So this could be just something that blows away as he takes more shots, becomes more comfortable in the system. There's no way he's going to take fewer than 6 shots per game for the rest of the year. He'll get back up to 9, 10, maybe even 11, and his threes will go up, his usage will go up. His blocks right now are interesting low. He has less than half as many blocks per game as he has in recent years. Minutes aren't really down. He's still playing more than 30 minutes per game. His steals are fine, rebounds are fine, assists are normal. Everything is kind of in range except for his shots and blocks right now. And like I said, as he takes more shots, more will fall down. As he gets kind of more comfortable on the floor, the blocks will come. He'll figure out how to navigate the Portland Trailblazers offense and defense. He's an invaluable piece on any sort of fantasy roster once he gets going. Health was a bit of an issue a few years back when he did only play 35 games, but for the most part, he's been healthy throughout most of his career. So Rocco is definitely someone worth buying. You can probably get him for someone at the end of your bench right now, maybe sort of like a PJ Washington type, get rid of an inefficient player like that. You could swap them for Rocco, get someone who can help you in the stock department and kind of not hurt you anywhere else. So Rocco's definitely someone worth investing in. He's typically a 5th, 6th round pick value, but right now he's playing like someone who shouldn't even be rostered. It's going to be worth holding out on him because he's on a talented team. They're going to continue to win games. So Robert Covington, definitely another target of mine. Now, a player who we've been kind of waiting for the breakout on for a few years now is Wendell Carter Jr. And it hasn't been more. He's only been in the league for 3 years, but last year as a sophomore big, kind of on a team that really didn't have too many major pieces. Expectations were high with Wendell Carter Jr. He fell flat. He wasn't really worth rostering in most formats, even points leagues where it would just be points and rebounds that you would require. This year, third year, you expect a kind of jump. Okay, now let's get it going. And Wendell Carter Jr. is still kind of stagnating. The stocks aren't really there. He's shooting more threes. Just kind of weird looking at his stat line. His points are fine. His rebounds are a little down. His stocks, he's not even averaging 1 total stock, steal plus block per game. It's at 0.9 right now. So things are a little wonky. His free throw percentage is lower than recent years. It has dipped below 70% for the first time. His minutes are a little down. His usage is similar to recent years. And it's just the Chicago Bulls are figuring out their roster as they go. New head coach Billy Donovan has all these young pieces that don't really fit together too well. There's plenty of talent on this team, whether it be Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, Patrick Williams. They have pieces like Otto Porter Jr. and Thomas Satoransky off the bench. Now Satoransky is on the COVID list as of right now, but he should return soon. And then on top of that, Wendell Carter Jr. as mentioned. So they have all of these pieces to figure out how to mesh together and utilize properly. One of the worst lineups in the NBA was their starting lineup to start the year, and that was Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, Lauri Markkanen, and Wendell Carter Jr. And that's a weird team because Patrick Williams is basically a 4-5, and they're playing him at the 3. They have Otto Porter Jr. coming off the bench. He's more of a traditional 3 who can swing to the 4. But they kind of to force all these square pegs into round holes. It did not bode well for them. They're now experimenting more. Lauri Markkanen is out due to health protocols, but he should return soon. And then they can maybe figure out what to do with this team a little better. Markkanen's spacing should be huge, whether he's coming off the bench or starting. He is an important piece to the offense at least, even though he might not be the best defender. So maybe he can help Wendell Carter Jr. get unlocked, and maybe they can navigate Williams, Lauri Markkanen, Otto Porter Jr., and Carter Jr. a little better moving forward. So they have a situation where Carter could break out at any time, honestly. Even though things do look the past few years, he really hasn't grown much, if at all. Last year, his defense was a lot better. His stocks went up. He was looking like he was going to be a future stud. But right now, we can consider this as a blip to start his season. Field goal percentage is fine. As he gets more comfortable shooting threes, more of them should go down. He's only averaging about 30% right now on 1.5 per game. So he has some potential. He can become a 7 or 8 category contributor. It really just depends on if his free throws go up or not. For the most part, he doesn't really turn the ball over much, given that his usage isn't crazy high. He doesn't really kill you anywhere, even though he does hurt your free throw. If you're punting free throw anyway, who cares then? So he's definitely a target of mine to be a potential late season breakout. Maybe in the second half, he finds his footing and gets more comfortable on this team. Billy Donovan puts him in the right sets and utilizes them the proper way. So I'm excited about the Bulls. I like their pieces. Maybe they're a trade or two away. They might not be competing this year, even though I was hopeful in the preseason. They just look a little discombobulated when it isn't like a one-man show for Zach LaVine or something. They have the pieces, they just really don't know how to fit them together as of right now. So I still am interested in Carter Jr. I do think there will be plenty of opportunities down the line for him to show out and maybe get to a 15-point scoring range with 10 rebounds, a steal, a block, and a 3 per game. It's all in the cards, and that would be amazing for fantasy. Now, last but not least, someone I do think can have a nice little surge throughout the season as he gets more comfortable on the NBA floor is James Wiseman. Now, James Wiseman was the second overall pick for the Warriors in this past draft. He came out in his first 2 games and he put on a show. He was looking fantastic on the floor. Between those 2 games, he averaged 18 points, 7 rebounds, multiple steals, multiple stocks. His field goal percentage was awesome at 50%, but then he kind of slowed down throughout the middle games of the season thus far, and then he's kind of gotten back on his feet over these past 2 games, but he's still kind of disappointing. Maybe a little bit of the shine is wearing off James Wiseman after that nice little start. So there is a buying opportunity available. He's only playing about low 20s in terms of minutes right now, and that could turn off a lot of owners who see him as kind of a wasted roster spot. Like, what's the difference between James Wiseman and Bobby Portis aside from upside to them? So Wiseman's definitely someone worth investing in. His upside is sky high. Given that he is comfortable shooting threes in the league, he's going to kill you in free throw, but his blocks are super valuable, especially because especially with the threes he does provide, the scoring is going to be really good. Assists and steals will be few and far between, but they will be available here and there. Having Draymond on the floor to navigate along with Steph Curry will help the offense flow. Kelly Oubre is looking more comfortable. Andrew Wiggins is Andrew Wiggins, so there's not much to say about that. But for the most part, the Warriors are a weird team. They're probably not a good team, even though they are 4-3 as of right now. They had one of the worst point differentials in the league coming into this recent game against the Sacramento Kings. It was actually the second worst in the NBA, not just the second worst in the West. Worst is reserved for the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll discuss them in future shows. But James Wiseman is a fantastic talent who has shown flashes on the NBA floor, enough so to believe in. And if the Warriors do begin to skid and maybe lose enough games to call the season eventually, James Wiseman will get a ton of run. Now, fouls are a bit of an issue. He is getting to 3 or 4 early on in games, so maybe that will cause him to not play as many minutes as we would like. But if he can figure that out, become more comfortable, James Wiseman is someone I'm very much so interested in rest of season, given his potential to produce across the board outside of free throws. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. Make sure to go check out RotoBaller.com for all of your fantasy sports needs, whether that be football, baseball, basketball, hockey, golf, MMA, video games. Doesn't matter. If you want it, we got it over at RotoBaller.com. Check out all of our fantastic premium packages and use promo code KEV at checkout, KEV, K-E-V, to get 10% off, to utilize our fantastic draft kits, strategy guides, and utilize our DFS optimizers to win big in 2021 and beyond. Check us out, rotoballer.com. Now, everybody, once again, I'm Kev Mahserejian, aka at RotoSurgeon on Twitter. Make sure to go rate and review this podcast, The Operating Room, on Apple Podcasts. Follow it on Spotify. Download it wherever podcasts are available. Like and subscribe to the RotoBaller YouTube page. And as always, I appreciate you guys, and talk to you next time.